Welcome to Close Up Radio, where our hosts Doug Llewelyn and Jim Masters engage today's top thinkers from around the world to bring you information, inspiration, and thought-provoking ideas you can put to use in your personal and professional life right now. Covering a broad range of topics, Close Up Radio digs deep to discover what makes today's top thinkers tick. Close Up Radio, where ideas matter. And now, here's today's host, Doug Llewelyn.
Well, thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Close Up Talk Radio. It's nice to have you with us today. We're going to be looking into a rather interesting, fascinating subject. It's one we don't talk about very often, and it's dedicated primarily to people who are approaching retirement age and are faced with making that decision of do they stay in the family home or do they think maybe it might be time for them to think about moving into a retirement community. It's a sticky subject, and it's a tough one. And a lot of people have problems making the decision to do it, and if they're going to do it, where do they go? There are so many decisions to make. We have an expert on the subject with us today. She's based in Ottawa, Canada, and her company really focuses heavily on the Ottawa area. I know people are listening to us, throughout the United States and in Canada and even abroad, but the information you're going to hear today could be of help to you. Doesn't matter where you live, because you could face the same situation. Amy, however, our guest, as I said, lives in, and her company's in Ottawa. She focuses very heavily and services the Ottawa area, and she has associates who also help in other cities throughout Canada. This is primarily a Canadian-based show, okay? Anyway, her name is Amy Friesen. She is a retirement living expert, and she's the founder of a company called Tea and Toast. I love the name, Tea and Toast, where she provides a compassionate, convenient, credible, customized, and complimentary local service in Ottawa for families and individuals looking for a retirement residence that fits their unique needs and budget. As she puts it, she specializes in helping families and seniors who are looking to make the move to retirement living or long-term care. She helps to guide them from the very first day of their journey all the way through their move. And since 2005, she's worked with seniors and their families really throughout North America. And in 2014, she founded this company, Tea and Toast, and she put it, she hasn't looked back. Their senior living advisors act as brokers in finding the best place for this next stage of life. Their unique method of assisting those who are navigating the retirement living industry saves families a lot of time, countless hours, and stress that conducting their own retirement living search would have inevitably amounted to. She is also an author, and the book is available, and it could be of help to you wherever you live. It's called Breadcrumbs, Piecing Together the Retirement Living Industry, a guidebook and strategies for seniors and caregivers. And it features a lot of real-life examples of just how family members successfully have tackled that challenge. As Amy put it, she wanted to show caregivers they're not alone. We're really trying to make sure everybody understands what the challenges are and what the solutions really could be. She thought it would be much more personalized and simplified, and it's definitely emotional, but it doesn't have to be complicated. Anyway, I'll tell you more about the book, and I'll give you Amy's website. Well, let me give it to you. It's pretty simple. It's teaandtoast.ca. Don't you love that name? teaandtoast.ca. That's for Canada. So let's bring her on now. It's a real delight to have Amy Friesen with us today. Amy, how are you? I know it's a rainy day in Ottawa, and that's not good, is it? Should be a beautiful day. I'm sorry.
It should be a beautiful day, but we get lots of those. Hi, Doug. Thanks for having me on today.
You're so welcome. I think this is a subject a lot of people would be very interested in and would love hearing your comments about it. And as I said, it really doesn't matter if they don't live in Ottawa. They can benefit from your advice. And your book. Your book, I'm sure, would be very beneficial to help them as well. So let's start talking a little bit about this. Really, what are the various services you provide in Tea and Toast or at your firm? I know it's a long list, but let's go through it. What do you do?
Well, we're really very much based in educating families. So between our assisted living search that we do with retirement homes and long-term care and our consulting to help families, and like you said, the book, and we have a course as well, we're really trying to bring all of the pieces together to educate families on what the assisted living might look like for them and how to find the best possible next home for themselves or their loved ones.
Why is this such a major decision for people who have reached retirement age? I mean, a lot of people retire early, in their 50s. They're not ready for a retirement community at that point, most likely. What's the primary age that folks really start thinking about a retirement community? How would you answer that?
Well, I have to say a lot of people put it off for as long as possible, to be honest, but they start looking into it often when their care has changed, right? So even if they need just a little bit of care, they maybe start looking into a different environment, but it's quite scary. And you're considering you're moving from a place, your home that for how many years. A lot of people here have been in their homes 50, 60 years into a new environment. It's kind of like going off to college again. You're in a new environment with new people and you're having dinner with people. It's a pretty scary endeavor.
Yeah, I definitely can understand that. So when they come to you, what happens? What you sit down and just show them what is available, what the different situations could be, and try and soothe the path for them to make that move and make that decision. I guess they all eventually do make the decision, don't they? If they come to talk to you about
eventually.
it.
Yeah, they come to talk to us, and we really help to see what their choices are. So a lot of what we do is what we call discovery and trying to figure out what their situation is now for, what would they like for location preferences and what's their budget and what's their care needs, all the way up to what are they going to need in the future and what types of homes are going to be able to support them now and in the future. So we do a pretty deep dive with our clients and our families to make sure that we uncover any things that might come up that would affect either, right now or in the future for their care needs and their preferences, to make sure that we uncover, every single rock.
And moving into a community like this, you'll have to explain this to me. I mean, I've heard some of it. I'm certainly not that knowledgeable about it all, but I know it's not like you're just moving to a new home that you're going to rent and pay monthly rent to. A lot of places you have to pay a substantial amount of money down. It's quite different. How do you explain all this to those folks? And maybe it's different in Canada than it is in the U.S., but what is this typical situation of getting into a community like that?
For sure. It is definitely different than the U.S., but generally speaking, you're looking at a similar arrangement as, renting an apartment or condo, but with the social and the care needs taken care of as well. And so often when we're walking people through the process, it's all about what kind of lifestyle do they want for this next phase of their life, and how can we best situate them in an environment that will really help them, thrive in that environment. Lots of people want to remain as independent as possible. Others need a lot of care and support. And so a lot of them really look at it as, you're downsizing from a home, so it's sort of like a condo or apartment where you're renting, but you also have all this extra support already built. Relieves a lot of the caregiver stress and things like that come with it, because, their families are no longer having to take care of as many things, and they can really leave that up to the home and to the staff there as well.
Let me ask you about the children of seniors who are considering making this change. They obviously sometimes get involved in the mix to help their parents. I assume you would help them too. You probably communicate with them as well, don't you?
We actually usually hear from the children first. So usually they're the ones that are going to do the bulk of the research and present options to their loved ones. We definitely do work with the seniors directly after we get that first contact, because it's very, very important that they're involved with the search, regardless of their own health or what their needs are. They need to be a part of the search, but it may look different from one person to another as to how much they're involved. So we definitely work with the children, and most of the time, and we really get through to kind of what the needs are and bring everything together to make sure that as a family unit, the next move is, supportive of everybody as much as possible as well.
The fact that it's a retirement community means obviously they're going to be living with a lot of people their own ages at this point. Many of these communities offer what is known as a continuum of care. What does that consist of? How would you answer that?
So the continuum of care differs from community to community, but when we're educating folks on the continuum, it's really how much care do you want to be able to access in the home that you're living at. So, if someone's looking for a more independent atmosphere and when they need care, they're ready and willing to make a move, that's all right. But there's a lot of people that are somewhere in the low levels of care that don't want to make a move, and they want to make sure that the community can help sustain their care needs as they age, so that their sense of community, their sense of belonging, being familiar with the staff and the building and the surroundings all stays the same while their care changes. So lots of people have different views on continuum, but really that's what it is to how long can you stay in one building and get the care that you really require before having to make it. In Canada, we really go from retirement living to long-term care or a nursing home. So, if someone needs a higher continuum of care, they may end up in the nursing home system afterwards.
Well, there are advantages to that. I mean, not all communities offer all of those services, but those that do, there is a distinct advantage, isn't there?
There has been, especially in the time that we're in now, having buildings that have extensive care and care available definitely are buildings that are very desirable for folks, especially if they have arranged the building in a pleasing way, because sometimes, independent folks don't necessarily want to be living with super high care individuals. And so if the building can work with both, populations to make sure both populations are really comfortable, those are the buildings that thrive the most.
But on the other hand, there are retirement communities that do not offer continuum of care or do not have nursing facilities available and things like that. Isn't that correct? So they don't have that at all?
Yeah, that's correct. So there's definitely independent homes. And when we are working with clients that are looking to move to those homes, and we still discuss with them what their future might look like and what the care might look like. And then those individuals, when they require some more care, will either their next steps in their plan is either to go into the nursing home system or to look at another retirement home that would be able to add that care on. And so then they're prepared to make a move. The biggest thing we do, like I said, is educating people to know what those care levels mean so that if they do require care, they're not caught off guard thinking that they didn't have to move, and now they do. So that's really one of our main roles, is to make sure that they understand how the system works.
Yeah, that would be a pain to move out of your house, your home that you've lived in for many years, move to a retirement community, and then 5 years later find out, well, your mate's health is deteriorating, and all of a sudden you got to move again. That's moving is not fun, and I'm sure they would kind of feel that way as well. What are some of the other big things that you do to help people who are, at reaching this point in their life where they're thinking about a retirement community? Let's go through the services.
Well, so in our consulting service, we also help with a little bit of mediation for the families to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Often siblings aren't on the same page, so sometimes it means that we need to talk to the siblings before talking to their parents to make sure that everybody's kind of a united front, right? Because you don't want, people wanting to do 6 different things and then coming with an idea to their loved ones and making it even more confusing, especially as you add in different care levels such as dementia and things like that. You want to make sure that it's as clear as possible for the seniors when they're making a move. So we do a lot of consulting with families for that as well. And we also do consulting for long-term care. So it's a bit different of a service than we do for the retirement living, but really it's to help people figure out what the system is and give them a shortcut. This research often takes families 80+ hours because there's over 90 buildings in this area alone. When we can really get it done in about 5. So really just giving them a shortcut through all of it.
And I know that you brief them on what's available. I gather when they make a decision on 1 or 2 places, you will book tours with them to take them to the homes to explore, am I right?
For sure. So for the retirement home search, what we do is we do our discovery, and then once we learn about the family and our client, then we go out to figure out what's going to best fit them, and we supply them with usually a top 3 or 4 list of the best communities that would fit what their needs are based on availability, based on pricing. And then what we do is schedule the tours and go with them on tour so that they have an advocate with them. They have someone who understands the system with them the whole way. And then we can help them compare each of the homes together so that they can actually have, you know, something in front of them that they understand apples to apples, instead of a lot of the retirement homes you're trying to compare apples to oranges to bananas, right? So we really streamline the process so they really understand, okay, the care level here means X and the care level there means Y, and what does that mean as a whole picture? So we really help them through that process to make sure that, again, that they're understanding the system and what that looks like for them.
You know, I know obviously you go over price with them. Price is something that they would obviously be interested in. That's one of the most important questions of all. I have no idea. Could you talk a little bit about the price ranges in Canada for, you know, retirement homes and what they offer? What would be a high versus, you know, and a low? I'm sure it varies pretty dramatically, but fill me in a little bit.
Sure. Absolutely. So if you're looking at a retirement home for someone who does not need care, who's independent, and looking at what we call a studio suite, which is about 300 square feet, you're probably looking somewhere starting around $2,500 a month. And that would include their meals usually, that would include a weekly housekeeping and their social. And then from there, you're really going up in either care or suite size. Locally, we've moved people that were, you know, up to $15,000 a month. So it really depends. Once you start factoring in how much care you need, do you want a 1-bedroom? Do you want a 2-bedroom? And are there 2 people or 1 person moving? Because there's always a fee for the second person as well. So retirement can be expensive, but also it can, you know, it has the availability to be on the lower end as well. And it's really about making sure that you research each option so that you know what'll fit. It's really tricky for some folks coming from a home, and often what they do is, because they're downsizing so much, often they move into a 1-bedroom, and then when their care needs increase, they actually decrease their suite size and they increase their care. So that's a really good way around it as well.
So once they move in, you know, they get a fixed price. There are no extras. The meals are all included for the most part. And I would assume they have the decision on how many meals they want to buy per day or not. Is that right? I mean, maybe they might not want breakfast. They might want, you know, just dinner, or they may want 3 meals a day, and that would vary too. Wouldn't that be right?
Yeah, so usually the industry's been changing a little bit. It was, for the most part, 3 meals included in snacks in like most of the homes. But what's been happening in more recent times is that the buildings have seen that, you know, a lot of seniors want to have breakfast in their pajamas and read the newspaper in their suite. And so they've started being able to opt out of meals. Often the retirement home would like them to have 1 meal at least. It's more so for a wellness check to make sure that everybody's doing well and that, you know, they're getting a proper meal. But generally speaking, they're starting to go towards being able to opt out of some of the meals.
So there's a lot to think about here, no question about it. And I want to get to your book too as well, because I know you've taken a lot of time to write this. Breadcrumbs. I don't know why you use breadcrumbs. Anyway, Breadcrumbs: Piecing Together the Retirement Living Industry, and it's a guidebook and strategy for seniors and caregivers. I assume you cover everything in that book. Is that right? It's kind of a answer everything book for people who are thinking about moving into this kind of a situation.
Well, we definitely try to answer everything, and I can tell you it's called Breadcrumbs because a lot of people come to us with bits and pieces of information that we have to sew together for them so they can see the bigger picture, hence the breadcrumbs being to the larger slice of bread. Really just, you know, trying to piece together all the things that everybody's told them, all of the research that they've found, to get to one spot where, you know, everything is arranged for them and organized so that they can make an actual decision on what they're going to do next.
I mentioned to you at the outset, I know a little about this, primarily because one of the best friends, I ever had. He and I went all through high school together. He was the best man at my wedding. I was the best man at his wedding. That kind of situation. We followed each other for years, all through our careers. He ended up going to work in a big major Fortune 200 company and retired, I think, around the age of 65. He was fit as a fiddle, and he and his wife moved into a retirement community. And I couldn't understand why. Because I said, Jim, you're not near retiring. He played golf every day. He was just physically, had a boat, everything. But it was a kind of a community that offered everything. It went all the way from no medical services up to long-term care. And the amazing thing was, about 10 years after they had been in this community, he came down with Alzheimer's disease. And it got very serious. But it was so great for his wife because they didn't have to move anywhere. She just picked up the phone and called the medical department at where they were. And they started taking care of him. They'd visit him in their house, and then eventually they had to move him into the long-term care facility there at the property. But as I look back on it now, I think it was probably one of the smartest decisions he ever made. It was amazing, and he made it at a relatively young age, I think. But there is an advantage to that.
For sure. We're always asking people, to have a look at this and make a plan. A lot of people don't want to make a plan, but even in your case, in your friend's case specifically, they've had a plan. And we specialize in working with folks with dementia and with couples where one has dementia, because there's a specific way that the retirement homes work with those folks as well. And so in order to make sure, like most couples would like to stay together as long as possible. So it's really important to weigh out all of those factors and to make sure that the community can support not only the person with dementia or Alzheimer's, but also the spouse who would be in this heightened caregiver role, and to make sure that they also get the breaks that they need and that there's someone looking out for their spouse while they do what they need to do too. So it's really important to have that support, again, around the couple themselves.
That's something most people don't think about, is the caregiving issue of additional caregiving, because caregiving can be a really, it can be a very difficult job. And if a wife is left, all by herself to take care of her husband 24 hours around the clock, and he is, he's really not very well off, physically, it can be a real drag. So they have you're talking about other caregivers who can come in and help out in some of those situations. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, yeah, the home staff, it could be a couple of things. The home staff would be able to help and supply support for that. But then also they could bring in private support as well. So really they're in an environment that is geared towards being able to help someone with dementia, and then that person's taken care of. And then in a retirement home that also offers the independent building for seniors who are the spouse of that person, then they also can be in the same environment. Instead of the independent person kind of living in a medical situation, they can live in a more independent situation, and then the person with dementia can actually get the extra help they need in a more medical appropriate situation.
Yeah. Boy, it's very interesting. Talk to me a little bit about your background. What got you to specialize in this field? How did that come about?
Well, my background is really in psychology and marketing, which definitely panned out, let me tell you. And I was trying to, for the longest time, merge those two fields. And I worked in the retirement homes for 9 years before Tea and Toast was born. And really, it was just a drive. I didn't have my grandparents in my life very much. They were gone in my early years. So to be surrounded by so many seniors and that kind of energy, I really loved. And so that's also why I started Tea and Toast. I wanted to make sure that they were protected and educated and make sure that I could take care of them as much as possible.
I have to ask you about the title, Tea and Toast. I think it's so cute. But where did that come from? How did you come up with that?
Well, really, it's a double meaning, right? So when a senior sees the words tea and toast, usually it's comfortable, it's warm. They love to have tea and toast often for breakfast, I'm told, in that fashion. But when the caregivers or the children see tea and toast, yes, it still could be warm and fuzzy, but it's also a nutrition issue. So if they're noticing that their loved one is eating more tea and toast, maybe they're eating it for all meals or whatnot, then it's a red flag. So really, it gives you the idea, okay, maybe something might be wrong, but also kind of wrapping it in the hug.
Well, I congratulate you. It's a cute name. It's a great website you have. There's a lot of information there. The website, again, is teaandtoast.ca, and you spell out the and, so it's TEAAND, toast.ca. It's interesting. You have a portion in there where you talk about some of the questions that you get most frequently. Let me ask you about some of those. Let's say, for example, as you point out here, one of the parents, my mom or dad, isn't quite ready for a retirement home, but we see it happening likely in a year. Should they start their search now, or even though they know it may be a year or two away before they actually make such a move? In other words, is it too early to look?
Often it's more, if their search is looking in about a year, we actually work with these folks as well. And so usually we consult with them about putting their plan together. Sometimes we do an early search so that if they want to really nail down which community would best suit them, and then, when it's time to move, then they know where they're going. We've done that, but also often what we do is we do a discovery session with them. We find out what their needs are, and then what we say is, put us on your fridge, and they put our business card on their fridge, and we keep in contact with them to make sure things haven't changed, or if they have, we're readily available. It's much easier to give us a call when we have a relationship with them already, as opposed to starting a search in a crisis. So we're big promoters of planning early, and then we can lay out the steps of the next steps of what to do.
Let me ask you a question. I happen to live in an area of the U.S. where there's a large retirement population in the area where I live, and I know that of the retirement communities, a lot of them have a long waiting list. You have to get on a list several years in advance in order to get in. Do you find that the case in the Ottawa area or in Canada?
So for the retirement homes, most often there's not a list, actually, unless you're looking for something very, very specific. 2 bedrooms might have more of a waiting list, but generally speaking, there's not overly too long of a waiting list, if any. It's in our long-term care system where there's a waiting list because it's subsidized by the government. So that waiting list in Ottawa can be up to 10 years long, actually. So a lot of people, a lot of people who need care while they're waiting go into retirement homes. And then also couples, again, who want to stay together also choose to go to retirement homes because in long-term care, it's a little bit more difficult to stay together with your spouse.
So if you think about that waiting list, then maybe it is advisable to get your name on a list fairly early if you feel that's the kind of situation you're going to want to move into. What happens if the kids and the parents, and let's say the parents are the ones that are moving into the retirement community, can't agree on where they should go, and they're really divided between the two of them? Can you help them out there? Are you faced with that quite often?
We are faced with it quite often, but let me tell you, if everybody's on board for a move, then figuring out the location that fits best is peanuts, because really trying to get everybody on board for the move is really more of the feat. So if the adult children want to go one way and the senior wants to go the other, then we just take it into consideration and we try to meld the two. And if not, if the senior has a strong preference, well, you know what, that's going to be their home. So they should have the preference to be able to live where they want. So we try to, meld it together as best as possible. But at the end of the day, that's going to be their new home, right? So. Yeah.
Well, it's really obvious you offer all kinds of services and all kinds of advice for folks. And again, Amy, we've run out of time, but it's great having you on and explaining some of this. You're based in Ottawa, and your firm, Tea and Toast, basically helps people in the Ottawa area. You do have associates who work elsewhere in Canada, but basically you are not involved here in the U.S. I just wanted to point that out. But again, it's a great website. There's a lot of information, and it's teaandtoast.ca. Amy Friesen, thank you so much for being with us, and a reminder about your book, Breadcrumbs, Piecing Together the Retirement Living Industry. I guess it's available on Amazon. Is that right, Amy?
You bet. It's on there.
Okay, good enough. Thank you so much for being with us, Amy. I'm Doug Llewelyn. That's it for today. Thanks, everybody. Hope you learned something. I know I did. Take care.